On September 8th, 2014, Digiorno Pizza tweeted, #WhyIStayed. You had pizza. This is the Museum of Twitter, the show where we talk about the most important tweets in the history of Twitter.com. If you were not on Twitter at the time and don't know the context, you wouldn't know why this is one of the most insane blunders in the history of corporate social media. Because on its face, it makes sense for Digiorno to post this. The reason why you'd stay somewhere is because he had pizza. But the problem is that they used #WhyIStayed, which was a hashtag for a very specific purpose. #WhyIStayed was started by a domestic violence survivor named Beverly Gooden after the video of Ray Rice striking his fiancée in an elevator went viral. The point of it was for women who had been in abusive relationships to explain the excuses they made for themselves or the reasons why they felt they had to stay, even after things got really bad. It was very cathartic for a lot of survivors, and I think it, as well as other things around this time, made more people understand why it's not as simple as like, oh, you just gotta leave. Now, of course, the social media manager for Digiorno's Pizza did not read any of this. He or she presumably just saw the #WhyIStayed and thought of something clever. And I want to highlight this blunder because I think of all these social media blunders by big corporations that I've covered, I think that this one is like the easiest to understand how it happens. I'm not excusing it, but I can understand how it happens. Person is lazy and doesn't look into why something is trending is like a pretty plausible explanation of how you make a mistake. And the thing is, they almost immediately realized they made the mistake. Just a few minutes later, they tweeted, "A million apologies, did not read what the hashtag was about before posting." And to their credit, as Katrina Sands wrote in the Huffington Post, they actually did a really good job of apologizing to people. Apparently, they literally gave an individual apology to every single person who tweeted at them about the incident. And so while I don't respect the mistake, I respect that. I think that too often corporate apologies feel like they don't actually mean it. But because each apology was like tailored to what the person said, clearly the social media person was spending the time to actually write out those apologies. And to me, that shows way more contrition than just like one statement and then going radio silent on social media for like 2 days. Of course, this didn't stop people from admonishing Digiorno. Keep in mind, it was 2014, which is why it would make sense for Sarah Vieira to quote the news and say, "All caps facepalm head desk." You don't think that language changes that quickly, but then you see something from just 11 years ago where someone says, "All caps facepalm head desk," and you're like, wow, that's almost an alien language. Tom Belknap joked, "It's not domestic violence, it's Digiorno." And while this does not have the staying power of some other social media blunders, because like I said, it was in 2014, people still referenced it over the years when Digiorno tweeted. When Digiorno made the point to Gordon Ramsay that pineapple belongs on pizza, which is an argument I don't really have a strong opinion about, Jake, not me, quoted that and said, #WhyIStayed away from Digiorno's pizza. And in 2019, when Digiorno tweeted, "Friendly reminder that pizza time is all the time," MX Razy quoted that and said, #WhyIStayed. And a tweet that got in my feed last week actually reminded me of this whole incident, because someone used it as a comparison point for someone else misunderstanding what someone was talking about. Follow me. So Queen of the Yam tweeted, "Hand, foot, and mouth on the rise," referring of course to hand, foot, and mouth disease. But Esteban Ruiz quoted that and said, "And I need all three, #put them feet together, #it's the rock." Which Queen of the Yam quoted and said, "Hey, do you know that this is a viral infection?" And Crawford responded to someone who posted those screenshots with, "This is a flagrant misunderstanding and the same level as the Digiorno's tweet." Which made me realize that we probably should reference this more, because it is really like the text of misunderstanding why something is trending. Because while a lot of misunderstanding trends on social media are relatively harmless, like you misunderstand a trend that's about like Ariana Grande's music and you make it about something else, like whatever. There are a few topics that have been talked about on social media more serious than being in an abusive relationship. And even though it was inadvertent, Digiorno tried to make that about selling their pizza. And that is a problem. Because if you read in the context of the other tweets, what it seems like Digiorno is saying is, I stayed in an abusive relationship because he had pizza. Specifically Digiorno's pizza, which I don't think was their intended message. Follow me for new tweet every day, and please consider joining my Patreon, patreon.com/museum of Twitter, where you get to vote on what I cover on Subscriber Sundays, and you get a weekly bonus episode called the Museum of Not Twitter.